All right, so for part two of the causes of the American Revolution and how Georgia was impacted. So in this video, we're going to take a look at specifically the Stamp Act and how that impacted Georgia. So your learning target for today is today I am learning how to explain the causes of the American Revolution as they impacted Georgia, so that I can analyze the role of Georgia in the American Revolutionary era. I'll know I'll have it when I can explain how the Stamp Act impacted Georgia and led to the American Revolution. Now, remember in the last video, I talked about how Great Britain went to war with France over the Ohio River Valley and the fur trade, and I said as a result they won the war, but as a result of the war, Great Britain was going broke and pretty much bankrupt because they spent so much revenue and money putting into the war. So as a result, they were in a lot of debt. So the King George III, he came up with the idea in British government, came up with the idea to make the colonists that lived in America, specifically in the Britain colonies, pay that debt off. So the way they made them do that was they made them pay taxes. So think about how we pay taxes now. It's the same thing as it was back then, except it was a little worse because they were taxing every little thing that the colonists had or needed. So they would pass different tax acts. So saying these things you must pay taxes on these things. So like the Sugar Act, this Tea Act, the Stamp Act. Now in Georgia history, we're only going to talk about the Stamp Act. But when you get to high school and take U.S. history, you'll look more in depth with the Tea Act, Sugar Acts, etc. So the Stamp Act. So think about a stamp, how we have stamps now, where you need to mail out things. But back then, in the 1700s, you had to pretty much have a stamp for every little paper document that you needed. So think about like your newspapers, your licenses, any legal documents, things of that nature. You had to have some kind of stamp of approval or some kind of stamp to go on it. So that was a necessity. So Great Britain said they're going to profit off of that. That's one of the taxes they're going to make people pay. So they passed the Stamp Act. So of course, as you can imagine, many colonists did not like that because again, they felt like it's not fair that you're making us pay taxes on these different things. Then the colonists also did not have a voice in the British government or have a say in really what went on in the colony, specifically Georgia. So what if you ever hear the saying "no taxation without representation," that's what it's pretty much coming from. It's saying we don't have a voice in the government, so then why are we paying taxes? On top of that, they feel like, well, we didn't call this war in the first place with the French, but we're being made to help you all pay a war that y'all caused in the first place or called. So this is what the actual stamps look like back in the 1700s. Now, because many people were upset about the Stamp Act, and as well as many other acts, but again, we're going to look at the Stamp Act in Georgia history. So, because many people were upset about the Stamp Act, they would have these violent protests, these violent rebellions to show Great Britain we're not standing for this. So, one of the groups that came specifically was called the Liberty Boys. And the Liberty Boys was basically a bunch of guys who came together and said, we're going to just raise all kind of sand to oppose the Stamp Act, which is what they did. So this is what the Liberty Boys looked like back in that time. So the Liberty Boys pretty much, again, they were just a more organized way of opposing. So they still went out, did protests, had meetings saying this is not fair. We should say something about it. Let's do something about it. Now when it came to Georgia and the Stamp Act, Georgia really didn't have, of all the British colonies, Georgia really didn't have as much of a violent reaction to it. And a lot of reasons because you got to think about it, at this time, Georgia was still small compared to other Britain colonies, and they were poor. We were poor here. And then the governor, so remember, we're in a royal period at this time. So James Wright was the current governor during this time, and he was still very much loyal to King George III. So they were besties. And Georgia was still, because they were so poor, Georgia was very much still economically dependent on Great Britain when it came to financial backing. So this is another picture of the Liberty Boys in one of their meetings. So remember, the Liberty Boys formed to oppose the Stamp Act. All right, we're going to stop here, and then we're going to pick up on Wednesday with the Declaration of Independence.